And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Wednesday afternoon, 1:09 in the afternoon. A little light rain out there. We're expecting most of this, and most of it has stayed south of the 95 or 94 corridor, with about 2/10 of an inch here at the station. But you go down in the far southern valley, and half inch to an inch down around the South Dakota border over towards Barnesville, and then you go further north up towards Bemidji, and they're just starting to get a little light rain shower activity up there. They don't need it with cleanup and everything. Let's keep some of these areas drier. But other than that, a pretty quiet-looking forecast. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And, all right, we're playing the game again. Where's Bridgette?
Well, currently, I am just south of Hatton, North Dakota. I'm on my way to Northwood, where I'll be connecting with the North Dakota Grain Growers Association and the federal EPA. EPA is here in the state. Their job is to come on out and spend time in the area learning more about what we do and how we do it, because they want to be able to help us make accurate policy decisions. And the only way to know that is to have some hands-on experience and understand it even more closely than they think they might. You got a lot of folks here that spend time in offices, not necessarily in the field. So we're going to try to help them understand our agriculture as best we can. And would love to hear if you've got comments that you want to make sure I deliver to the EPA. And don't worry, I've got a few of those too. You can always send me an email, ag@flagfamily.com. You can reach us throughout the show today on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. And you can watch us, Weather and Ag in Focus, on either Facebook or YouTube. And you can also find us on Acres TV, which is the Netflix for agriculture. That's a free app for you to subscribe to.
All right.
Dean, I know we've got weather, but you also had a question the other day from a listener. Did we answer that on air? I don't recall that we did, about the last time there was a death from tornadoes in the state of North Dakota.
Yeah, we did. It was back in 2018. In fact, I wrote an article on it on our website. 2018 out in Watford City was the last death we had here. Now, in eastern Nebraska, it was 2007, the 2007 Northfield tornado. So, yeah, it's been since 18 since we've seen a death in the state.
Okay. So, yes, just wanted to make sure we answered that question for our listener, because we hate to miss out on doing our homework.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a couple things we have to do yet this segment. First, our great grocery giveaway, where you can qualify to be the winner for a $10,000 in groceries over a year. I think that goes down to about $800 a month, and boy, who couldn't use that? And today's qualifier, and again, you have 9 minutes and 70 seconds to call, and today's qualifier is Scott Christensen of Fargo. Again, that's Scott Christensen of Fargo. If you know Scott, text him. Say, hey, you got 9 minutes, 70 seconds to call to be a qualifier. And again, we'll be drawing for that June 10th to announce. July 10th. It is, yeah, we're past June 10th. We'd be in big trouble if it was this month, wouldn't we? July 10th for the grand prize on that. Now, we're looking at a little bit of rain out there this afternoon. Nothing particularly heavy. Most of this is pretty light, so that's good news if it's falling on a lot of these cleanup areas. We really could use some drier weather, but there is a little bit of rain in the forecast. In fact, we're looking at scattered showers for the rest of the day. Most of the steady stuff has moved off to the east of the valley, and we'll continue with that throughout the rest of the afternoon with just isolated hit or miss showers. Temps are going to hold steady in the 60s, though, with winds out of the east-southeast at about 5 to 10. A few isolated showers continue overnight tonight. Nothing widespread, though, with lows in the upper 50s to near 60. And that rain moves east on Thursday. We'll be left with mostly cloudy skies, highs around 70. And then we increase our temps Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with temps in the low to mid-80s Friday, mid to upper 80s on Saturday and Sunday, with a lot of humidity increasing as well. Now, Friday night, it does look like we stand a good chance of seeing thunderstorms, and some of those are expected to be severe across the state, with the main threat, I hate to say it, but damaging winds. That's the last thing we need to see Friday night. Now, as we get into tomorrow, we'll kind of time those storms out a little more. Right now, and this is just the initial reading from our models, is that these will start out west, like evening hours, out of 6 o'clock or so with the heating of the day, and then spread east-southeastward towards the valley as we head after dark and into the overnight hours. So we'll keep a close eye on that, but that's the last thing we want to put in the forecast is more severe weather as we head into Friday. But it does look like a pretty good bet, unfortunately.
Let's be careful out there. I mean, cleanup is still continuing in many of our communities, both in Hunter and Page. Really, a big thank you to so many folks who've been helping do the volunteer work of payloaders, side dumps, skid steers. This morning, when I took my roaster of Sloppy Joes to our command center at the ambulance building to feed those hungry workers, I was greeted by a parade of probably about 7 or 8 other women with their full crock pots and pans of bars, and that is a blessing in disguise. We are keeping that whole engine of energy fueled around the community, and I know that's happening in other areas as well. But be careful out there. There was an accident south of Hunter just earlier today, about an hour ago, and I need to put this in perspective, folks. Our fire and ambulance crews are already trying to clean up houses and yards and trees and so much more, and they've been working nonstop for days. And unfortunately, now we have an accident as well. I did not get a clear picture as to injuries, etc. But please be careful. Don't hurt yourselves. And there's a lot of stress going on in the region. So let's just be careful out there if we could, please. Much appreciated.
All right.
And do we have a qualifier?
We do. Scott is on line 1. Scott, congratulations. That was what was the timing on that, Addison? That wasn't a wreck. It was a minute. Hey, good job, Scott. Congratulations on qualifying for our great grocery giveaway.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hey, no problem. Now, the finalist, or the winner, I should say, will be announced July 10th out at Kingpin's. Make sure to be there.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott. Have a great week.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Congratulations to Scott for qualifying. And again, we'll continue with this every Wednesday. Also, hey, we're going to have weather trivia at the towards the end of the show. I've got a fun question today, so that'll be in our last segment after 1:45. So be sure to be listening, where you can win one of our heavy duty rain gauges. That I'll tell you, this thing could withstand quite a bit of wind, hail, snow, sleet, you name it. This is one of those.
Mine did.
Yeah, right. it didn't budge, did it? What, do you have it anchored to the fence or?
Yeah, it's anchored on a post, like on the 4x4 post in the yard. So that, thank God that didn't go anywhere. Although it didn't record near as much rain as one would expect. And those are provided to us by Darter Plastics, and we greatly appreciate that. They make wonderful products, not just those rain gauges, but if you've been following our Here We Grow segments, as we've been shooting video for you, talking about our wheat field and its progress, you also saw Marcia Van Leer from Gowan and I talking about other products from Darter Plastics, like the personal bait station. They're the bait buckets that you can use without getting your hands dirty when you're going fishing. So check out all the opportunities that they have for you to find great products. Again, that's Darter Plastics. All right, we've got guests. We've got weather trivia. Our guest today is actually someone Dean and I just saw yesterday, and that is Justin Moline. He is with Kotaco Fuels. We got to spend a little bit of time working with him as we did our video all about fuel getting to the farm. So I'm kind of excited to further that discussion with him today and maybe recap what we talked about, but yet bring up so much more. Stay with us after we come back from the markets, and you can reach out to us with questions. 701-293-9000, the JLA Insurance phone line. Keep your technology moving safely along. Make sure that you are talking with Chris Sherman at TechSupportFarm.com. Chris wants to be sure that you aren't getting scammed, whether it's ransomware, malware, or someone lurking in the shadows and swiping details from your personal emails and your farm information from that as well. Give him a call. Check him out, TechSupportFarm.com. I mentioned earlier our Here We Grow project with our 20 acres of wheat that we're custom farming with Jim and Michael Hewlin, north of Prosper, North Dakota. We have several sponsors of that project, and a couple of them include Marcia Van Leer and Gowan USA. I talked about them just earlier today when we were talking about rain gauges and personal bait buckets. But Gowan brings you Domark and Affiance fungicide for corn and soybeans, and don't forget Badge SC on wheat. Right now, we have approached the fungiciding stage on wheat crops, and we want to make sure that we don't miss out on being very effective for early season and also that flag leaf disease control. And Red River Retention Authority. It doesn't feel like we need them right now, but we're going to because flooding has always been a big problem in the Red River Basin. And that Retention Authority, well, they're here to work with our local water districts in both Minnesota and North Dakota to reduce our flooding. So Red River Retention Authority does great work on your behalf. Also on your behalf, whether you're farm, in town, at a C-store, all those places, you might not know that Kotaco Fuels is the people behind fueling what you do every day. And Justin Moline is joining us in studio today. All right, guys, how are things there? I'm using Kotaco Fuels to get my places today.
I just filled up using it just yesterday.
Hey, thanks, guys. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Glad to. So, all right, we've mentioned just Kotaco briefly, but give us just a little background for those who don't yet know who you might be. It's not always a familiar name.
No, it's not. And Kotaco Fuel and Propane, we've celebrated 11 years in business now. We've been steadily growing over those past 11 years and very much so in rural North Dakota. So, Bridgette, like you talked about in that Hunter area, you noticed a change maybe a little while ago and now are a proud patron, maybe you say, I guess.
I would say.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's awesome. So, yeah, we deliver gas, diesel, and propane. We have a handful of C-stores. We've got trucks that run product around, and we're proud to be behind what power the farmers.
That's good. That's good. And we were out at your facility yesterday, and I was asking Justin behind the scenes here, Bridgette, because I forgot to ask him out there. So your complex out there is pretty vast, and if anybody hasn't ever been out there or driven by it, you've got these huge tankers. Okay, they're filled with fuel, and I was thinking, all right, what if that Enderlin tornado would have come directly over your property? What would that look like? Obviously, there's security measures in place and stuff like that, but what would happen if a catastrophe like a EF3, EF4 tornado would pass over with all that fuel in the tankers?
Yeah, well,
I got to lie down while you guys answer this question. I don't even feel good asking it right now.
well, no doubt there would have been a mess, right?
Right.
But, our tanks are pretty secure. And as I was telling you, Dean, it really depends on how tall the tanks are. We have 50,000 gallon tanks that are pretty tall, right? And if there is not enough product in those tanks, they can be tipped over. But we do take measure, and most times there's enough product in those tanks where they are very stable. They're very heavy. And we do have secondary containment for any type of spill or anything that happens. And like you said, safety measures, valves are in place, they're shut, they're closed. Those tanks are designed to withstand not tipping over, but if tipped over, they are designed to kind of still contain the product themselves.
Okay. All right.
So, and that goes with our semi trucks. With our transports, we call them. When they roll over, if they roll over, not when.
Right.
In the event something really happens there, more times than not, those tanks are designed to contain the product. They do a wonderful job.
Good. All right. Good deal.
So when we think about fuel deliveries, not just to the gas pump, but to the farm, what does that look like? I've heard terms in the past like distributors, jobbers, etc. There's a whole hierarchy of how that fuel passes from one hand to the other to the end user. Can you give us a little bit of a picture of what that looks like? Because it's not just so simple that you call up a tanker truck and it shows up and refuels your local gas station.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's actually a whole infrastructure behind that, a whole industry that has been built over the past 100 years plus, right? And for here in North Dakota, a lot of our gas and diesel is refined in Mandan. And connected to Mandan, there's a pipeline that runs east and has pickup or terminal locations in Jamestown and in Moorhead. And then it continues east all the way to Minneapolis. And then there's another pipeline that runs north and south, and that's the Magellan West Fargo terminal. So these supply points then are our access points to get the fuel. So every one of those access points, we can send trucks in to pick up and put on our trailers, and then we'll haul it either direct to the customer, direct to the farmer, or we'll haul it into our one of our bulk facilities, storage facilities. And then from there, a lot of times it'll get put on a smaller truck for a smaller quantity delivery. So we call those our bulk trucks. We'll take those to anywhere where there's a smaller tank, whether it's a construction company, whether it's a home heating customer, sometimes a gas station, but a lot of times gas stations will take those big tanker loads as well. So there's a whole infrastructure behind that you kind of miss when you just stick the nozzle in your tank. You know,
Right.
I think no one thinks about where does this gas come from, really. We're just very fortunate that it's there more times than not.
Yes, yes, we are. And I will tell you that yesterday at around 5:30, there was a bit of a lineup at Kotaco Fuels as we've been in Hunter refilling tractors, gas cans for generators, semi trucks, just everything. So we really appreciate what you've been doing to keep the operation flowing in our neighborhood, Justin. Thank you for that.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Well, we've got a little news, guys, and once we get back from the news, lots more questions. We're going to talk about things like renewable fuels and how Kotaco might be handling that to the farm and to all of us as consumers. And I had a question about propane emergencies because one happened in our region not that long ago, but I bet Kotaco can help solve those types of problems for you at home and on the farm. We'll do that when we return. And our in-studio guest, that is Justin Moline. Justin is the president of Kotaco Fuels and Propane, and he allowed Dean and I to come out yesterday. We did a video on site, used one of their fuel trucks, and look forward to watching that when it releases on our Facebook and YouTube channels, talking about the great things that Kotaco does in the region. And I got to tell you, I was up on top of the fuel truck, and it was warm and bright and shiny, and I hadn't eaten breakfast yet, and I'm like, there's not a handrail up here. I should get down.
You're up there a little ways, huh?
Yeah, it felt a lot of weird. So I'm like, okay, we're done now.
Yeah, it's deceiving. It's very deceiving from the ground, isn't it? When you get up there, it's on that little catwalk. It's feels
Yes.
unstable.
Yeah, because you realize if you're klutzy, because I have the athletic ability of a cow on ice, that being that far in the air, maybe not my best move. So,
Well,
yes.
Bridgette, can I just say quick too that both you and Dean, man, we had such a blast with you guys, and you both were just true professionals. That was a lot of fun for us who are novices, and a couple of our staff that were put under the gun, so to speak, and in front of the camera. So thank you for doing that. You guys were just wonderful.
And that video will be ready a couple weeks, Bridgette, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing it when it's finished.
Yeah, Johan, all your employees out there, you guys were more than welcoming, and I don't know how Bridgette passed the security check, but thanks for letting her on property. We do appreciate it.
Right.
We do.
Yes, exactly.
We pulled some strings.
Okay. So speaking of that type of thing, I know you not only handle fuels but propane, and this happened recently in my region where I feel like I'm at the epicenter of hell. That everything's been happening. I mean, good Lord, there was another car accident down there this morning on top of everything else. But nonetheless, someone had a relief valve blow out on a propane tank, and that required assistance of whomever was, their leasee or leaseor of their tank. In that situation, I would guess you have an emergency number. You've got staff standing by, Justin, that if you as a homeowner experience that type of thing, you can call Kotaco and they're there to help.
100%. We're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And really all you need to do is call our main number or your local office number, and you'll be answered by a live person. You may get something the first go around, but we're quick to respond, and things like that we jump on very quickly. That's nothing to mess around with for sure.
No, and my understanding is this was a situation where someone had wanted to be very decorative and painted their propane tank a darker color. I think we might want to advise folks against that. Could you explain why?
Yeah, I would advise folks against that for sure. So propane in your tank can expand. So by standard, some people call us and say, you only filled my tank to 80%. We say, yep, that's full, because we need that 20% for expansion. So in a warm day, that sun will warm up that tank and that propane will expand. And your gauge, if you watch it, would go from 80% to 90%. So very much do not want to paint your tank black, because that will only obviously heat up the tank further and cause probably a situation that you just encountered.
Okay, let's not be doing that. Set the pots of flowers around it. Don't paint it like a flower, folks. Just a heads up, okay? Not good. And then you and I were discussing a little bit about renewable fuels. And there's a lot of discussion out there, whether it's sustainable aviation fuel, what's in the past been called biodiesels. But you had some really great explanations for us as to how we should reference that and sort of the direction that you might be seeing for fuels on the farm and to consumers.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm actually really excited about the future for I guess what we'd call for renewable diesel, right? For green diesel, for sustainable aviation fuel, these type of things. We're all accustomed to biodiesel. And this new product, renewable diesel, which has kind of got all the buzz out there recently, is not biodiesel. It is a separate product. It is made from any sort of oil, whether it's canola, soy, or waste product. And this fuel is, my belief, my opinion is, I think this is the wave of the future. So much like you referenced SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, this is a drop-in fuel. So for diesel purposes, you can put this in your diesel engine, and it has the same properties, same performance, and it's a wonderful product. It's all you can get out on the West Coast. So we refine it here in North Dakota in Dickinson, And the large majority of that product is put on rail and shipped out to the West Coast, like Oregon and California. They have a huge mandate for renewable diesel out there in all of their vehicles. It dramatically lowers emissions. You don't have to change out your engines, right? You just drop it in and away you go. And we're actually using it here in Fargo quite a bit on the FM diversion project. A lot of the equipment out there is running renewable diesel today, and it's been a smashing success.
Wow. So is it what makes it different in terms of performance? No
Nothing.
difference? No difference at all?
We actually did a test. We did a pilot test 2 years ago on site with construction equipment, and they found, this was unbiased. They wanted to make sure they could use it in their equipment. So we started using this product, and they started testing everything from fuel efficiency to performance, and they found no difference whatsoever in their heavy equipment.
What about the cost to manufacture it? Is it?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, right.
That's the problem.
It
It's
always
not
is
cheap.
at first.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And there was a lot of government incentive with that, tax credits and that type of nature. A lot of state credits on the West Coast for that, which is why a lot of that product was sent out west. Over time, I do believe that as the market matures and the product becomes more readily available, because it is a race to market right now. We're currently in race to market mode. And once that market gets more mature, we'll see that price come down. And I believe we'll see that compete more with traditional diesel. Now, to be clear, this renewable diesel, there is no petroleum product whatsoever in it. It's a petroleum-free, a fossil fuel-free fuel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And we are using North Dakota crops for its production in
Right.
some cases, right?
In a lot
Depending
of cases.
on,
Yep.
Yeah, depending on which particular fuel. This could be using our soybeans, our corn. We'd have discussions about canola and a variety of other fuels as well. So keep in mind that energy and agriculture go together very, very well. And sometimes it's agriculture that's fueling our energy.
Right. And Justin, we've got a caller on line one. Tom, you've got a question for Justin.
Actually, it's a two-part question now. So the first one was to do with propane tanks and the temperature. What's the advantages, or what would be approximately the temperature when the propane tank is in the ground? So an underground propane tank, I'm thinking just safety in itself. That's the first question. And then the renewable diesel fuel, is there much water in that for, say, winter use? So how do we treat this with, for water?
Yeah, good questions. To answer your first one, my first response is I'm not sure. Ground temperature is a little more stable, I suppose, but in the wintertime, you're going to have less fluctuation. But I honestly don't know the answer to what is the ground temperature and how that affects your propane tank. We actually have very, very, very few underground propane storage customers. So we don't come across that very often. We only have about a handful. So that's a really good question. As far as the renewable diesel, in the wintertime, we can't use that diesel now because the cloud point, the pour point is in that 20-degree range. So once it hits about 20 degrees, you're going to start to get some gelling, just like you would with traditional number 2 diesel.
Yes.
So we have to be careful with that. You can add additives to help lower that pour point, but we don't run that in the wintertime yet. And to my knowledge, there's not a winter renewable diesel product yet. That's a good question.
That was the additives I used to use. I used to be able to get the pour point down to about 0. With number 2 and maybe 5 below, but it was heavily added, and because it was just like you said. And then if it was really bad, I'd cut it with number 1. But okay, but those are great answers. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for calling, Tom. Appreciate it. Good questions. Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, that's why the West Coast, California, Oregon, that's why they're using it so much. They don't have to worry about the colder temperatures that we do.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So 2 last things that I have for you, Justin. One is that when I was at the Midwest Ag Summit almost 2 weeks ago now, there was a discussion there about fuels and that there is a continued decline in gasoline demand. So I'm going to ask you your perspective on what you think of that before I ask my other question.
Okay, so where's gasoline demand going? Nationwide, it is declining. So the electrical vehicle mandate that was put out has affected the number of gasoline engines in the marketplace. So the last stat that I saw was over the next 10 years, we will see a steady decline in gas demand. Not diesel demand. Diesel demand is going to be steady and actually is predicted to continue to rise. But gasoline demand, and for a number of reasons, not just electrical vehicles, but fuel efficiencies and things of that nature are going to help lower that demand.
So secondly, we often hear folks say, but I don't want to run, say, an ethanol, et cetera, in small engines or even in some of the older carbureted vehicles because it can gum them up. What I've heard you say is as our fuels are improving, we don't have to worry about that anymore, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We have very, very few issues of ethanol-enriched gasoline. So, that is a safe product. I run that in my pickup. Have never had any issues. So no, that is not really a concern. And yes, the quality and the improvement of the fuels, there's such a standard these days that have to be met with that, that it is a 100% safe fuel for your car.
Absolutely. Well, I think that a lot of folks don't necessarily realize the quantity of fuels that farms go through. And I should not just say fuels, but bulk oils and so much more. And you can take transports right to the farm if they're set up for them. Do you anticipate you'll have farmers making some of those decisions here end of June into July as we start thinking about harvest and they're making some purchasing decisions?
Oh, absolutely. There's some hot seasons to buy product, and one is end of year, and one is when they're anticipating planting, and the next is when they're anticipating harvest. Those are when eyes are really on the market, trying to time that perfectly to get the best deal on their fuel. So yeah, coming up, we expect people to be watching closely, paying attention, and pulling the trigger.
I bet they were on Monday.
They sure were on Monday. Yes, they sure were. Yep. It was a wild day. Whenever the U.S. bombs a Middle Eastern country, yeah, boy, that'll spike that'll rattle the oil market in one way or another.
Justin, thanks. You always bring such energy to our conversations, and we never know where they're going to go. But thank you for all of it.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Justin. When we come back, we'll have our weather trivia question. You can win one of our heavy-duty rain gauges from Darter Plastics. That, and hopefully we have time for a couple of ag topics. They're backing up. We've been so busy, Bridgette. So we'll have more on that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:53 in the afternoon. If you're traveling south on 29, once you get into extreme northern or northeastern parts of South Dakota, some dense fog being reported down there from the heavy rains they had this morning. So kind of a heads up if you're traveling south. The rest of the afternoon, though, doesn't look too bad. Just a few isolated hit or miss showers. So the steady rain is done. Now it's just hit and miss. And today's weather trivia for a chance for a Darter Plastics heavy-duty rain gauge. Here's the question. I'm 5 times hotter than Bridgette Readel. 5 times hotter than the sun and can travel up to 270,000 miles per hour. What am I? 701-293-9000 to win one of our Darter Plastics rain gauges. Do you know what it is, Bridgette?
Okay, say that again. How many times hotter than the sun?
5 times hotter than the sun, and I can travel up to 270,000 miles per hour. What am I? All right, let's take caller 1 on line 1. Can we get your name, please?
Name is Greg.
Greg, what do you think the answer is?
I think the answer is lightning.
You are 100% correct. Great answer, Greg. That's right. All right, Greg, we're going to put you on hold. And Addison, our producer, he will take your information and then just swing by the station to pick up your rain gauge.
All right, we'll do that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Greg. All righty.
Yep.
I'm glad Greg won. He's been working very hard to get this rain gauge.
Yeah, see, well, finally. Was it too easy of a question?
No, it would either have been lightning or a shooting star was my guess.
Okay. Now, question. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, lightning or thunder?
I suppose it depends on which side of the storm you're on.
No, which one? Which comes first, lightning or thunder?
I always hear the thunder first.
Okay, actually, lightning comes first. The reason being is lightning superheats the air around it, and that causes kind of like as it's a gas and it expands, and as it expands rapidly, it kind of creates that shock wave that we hear as thunder. So lightning, you don't always see the lightning.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You can't always see it, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So the lightning comes first before the thunder does. And speaking of thunder, let's take a look at our forecast because we do have some thunder in it as we head into Friday night. But for tonight, or the rest of today, just a few isolated hit or miss showers left. We're going to stay in the 60s most of the day with winds out of the east at about 5 to 10. For tonight, an isolated hit or miss shower, nothing steady, with lows in the upper 50s to near 60. And Thursday, any light scattered showers we have will be in the morning. Then that'll clear out, but we'll still stay mostly cloudy with highs only around 70. Heat and humidity return for Friday, low to mid 80s, and then a good chance, unfortunately, it looks like, for storms Friday night. Racing across the state once again. Some of those are expected to be severe, so we'll update you more on that tomorrow. And then hot and humid over the weekend with highs in the mid to upper 80s both Saturday and Sunday. And this weather is brought to you by Progressive Ag Risk Management Specialists. So a summer-like weekend, Bridgette, but before we get there, a little concerned about Friday night. And again, we are in a slight risk. The entire state is basically for severe weather. It looks like the worst of it right now would hang out to our west, let's say from Dickinson through Bismarck, Jamestown, and then south from there. That's not a guarantee. That's a preliminary look that we have at it right now. And then, like I said, tomorrow when we get more data in, we will update you on that.
So based on the weather and what it's doing with our cropping systems right now, it could be an opportunity to put some stress mitigation product out into fields. So particularly if you think about the heat that we had over the weekend, I mean, it cooled off nicely, but you may have crop that was damaged. You have shattered and tattered leaves, etc. And Summit Agro wants to remind folks that they have a product called Tarma. It's a 5% soluble potassium that's going to help you with photosynthesis and cell division, nutrient uptake, and especially as you approach flowering in a number of our crops. So think about that. Your fungicides bring plant health, but you can add a stress mitigation product like Tarma to it in order to help that plant recover a little bit faster as well. Whenever we get into this time of the year where we have heavy wind, hail, damaging rainfall, that can just be a disease factor in our crop, especially if we have open wounds to the plant leaves. So keep it in mind.
All right. So for Bridgette, myself, want to thank everybody for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus today. Don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show, he's coming up next.